3 days have passed since the new Whizbang expansion came out, so now it's time to see how the meta is evolving. I'm a little bit sick and it is painful to talk, but still, I gotta let you guys in on the new best decks, because we have quite a few changes that we did not see 2 days ago. If you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can also hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is obviously gonna have to be Handbuff Paladin, and this deck is actually kinda insane right about now. I do have to warn you though that this and the next deck on the list are probably in for a nerf, and soon. So yeah, be careful crafting too much for it. There are quite a few iterations of both of these decks, so try to pick the one you have to craft the least for. They're all doing hella fine. Right now, this one has a ton of stats, a ton of win rate, and same goes for the next one, so just pick something that you don't have to craft too much for, and that should be carrying you nicely. This variation of Handbuff Pally is going for more sticky minions as well as the mining package. And we also have Gold Banner for more card draw, and also a couple of Living Horizons, which do land quite fast and quite big. The only 1-drops you run in this one are Righteous Protectors, and a lot of the times you actually don't even want to be dropping them early. You kind of want to wait for them to get a little bit more buffed with the help of the Painter's Virtue. And yeah, basically if you get the weapon, you win the game in most cases. We also have Leroy in here, so you don't have to worry about sticking a minion. But there are iterations of this deck that also run deckhands, which makes it even easier for them to OTK you from hand. In terms of control tools, we have Nomelia, Amidas, and we have quite a few rush minions with Burrow Busters, as well as Tiger's Plushie. So usually you're okay taking a few beatings in the first few turns because you get the heal back quite easily with things like Deputization Aura and all of those rushy minions. Matchup-wise, we actually already have stats for that, and the only thing that works against you right now would be Spell Token Hunter, which is the next deck on the list, but hold tight for that. As for the mulligan, here's what the stats show going first. I would definitely not hold on to Leroy from the start, yeah, I get it, you get to buff it nice and big, but honestly, you don't really need to OTK people a lot of the times, you just have to make big men, and a lot of the times those big men actually stick, so don't really overkeep things like Leroy Jenkins, despite what the stats say. Tiger's Plushie is definitely fine, Plucky Paintfin ain't bad, Trinket Artist is okay, I would not be keeping Amidas, Righteous Protector is okay, Instrument Tech is great, and also the weapon is also something you want to be holding on to. In most cases, Gold Banner is also a great keep, and honestly Cobalt Miner is not a bad thing to be doing on turn 2. As for on the coin, the situation is similar, still I wouldn't really be keeping too much these. Weapon Instructor is still great, Trinket Artist gives you card draw, Gold Banner is fine for a single card draw in most cases, but it's still something, and again, Cobalt Miner and the weapon are probably your best bets. For other good Pally decks, like I said, there are a ton of iterations of them. This is the list I'm showing you because it has above 3,000 games with above 67% win rate, which is insane. There's also an 80% win rate, but hella small sample size, so who knows how that happened. And yeah, we have tons of different iterations, like 20,000 games, 65% win rate, that's insane. That's literally for the last 3 days from Diamond to Legend, by the way. Like, this is huge for Pally right now. There's also some aggro Pallys out there with things like Boogie Down and Crusader Aura and whatnot, so plenty of different iterations of Pally are working right now, but the Handbuff Pally seems to be best. On the number 2 spot, like I said, we have Spell Token Hunter, and yeah, this deck is another one that probably is supposed to get nerfed really soon because we still have variations of this deck above 70% as well, which is actually insane. Again, tons of games with above 65% win rate on this one, and yeah, about this one, you basically just wanna Zerg the board with a ton of small minions in the early turns, you have your locations for tons of damage, quite early, like literally turn 2 you could be slapping for things like 4 damage easily. We have a bunch of small minions, Awakened Tremors help you Zerg the board again, and it also helps you buff up the board with things like Observer of Myths. We have Jeweled Macaw, which gives you a decent body on the board. It's a beast, so again works with the location. It also gives you an extra beast, so that can also be interesting. We have Messenger Buzzard, which honestly feels a little bit awkward, but it is a bit of card draw. It also gives you some stats buffs, so not that bad, especially if you open up with Tremors in turn 1 and follow up with Messenger in turn 2. Suddenly your 4-1 idiots become 5-2 scholars, so definitely nothing to scoff at. The Patchwork Pals are actually insane because you basically get 2 mana 4-2 charge with another 2 mana +1 on everything, so that's kind of huge. Remote control is hella fine, but don't get baited by it, by the way. Like, if you actually slap and you get a dog out of this, and you follow up with RC Rampage, the dog from the weapon does not get the buffs from this thing. Which is kind of awkward, honestly, because I guess you could make a case it's not stated it buffs all other RC Hounds, but kind of feels like it should have a little bit more explanation there, but I don't know. Anyway, you misplay with this once and you learn it forever, so yeah, when you play this, it only buffs the hounds you've actually played out of this spell, so don't expect to be buffing something on the board that can actually attack phase that turn. We also have Saddle Up, which makes your board incredibly sticky. It's basically like Druid's free mana give Death Rattle 2/2 treants kind of deal, but you actually get some pretty big mana out of it, like free drops can be absurd. And if you high roll with the Painted Canvasser, you could get something like Wind Fury on your Huffer and things like that, so that can be huge as well. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and Control Warrior is 50-50, but you can check out my latest video with this deck, and we actually did hella fine against both the warriors we faced, so it's not that bad actually. The other Hunter decks, like I said, here's the 70+% win rate deck, again very small sample size, but still. Tons of other iterations of the deck, like so many different ones. The Ziliax is actually a +1 and costs less for each minion in play because you have so much things on board, so that's important to point out because sometimes the code doesn't actually pick that up. But yeah, there's tons of different iterations of this deck. There are even decks that actually have different names, but they're still basically the same concept, honestly. Like, kind of weird, a couple of card changes, but you call it a buff hunter instead of spell token. I don't know about that. So far, things like King Plush are not actually that insane. That's kind of weird. Here's the first decent deck with it. I mean, it's still great, like 60% win rate, only 500 games though, but it is quite fine. We have 53% with King Plush again, and Secret Hunter so far seems to be kinda ass. On the number 3 spot, we have this new aggro Demon Hunter with a bunch of mechs in it. And I did face this a couple of times with the 2 busted decks I already showed you, and both were doing hella fine against this, so I'm not sure if it's that amazing. Maybe it was before the hand buff and hunters zerged the meta, but it's something I still see here and there. We have things like Frequency Oscillator in here. Actually the decks I was seeing also ran other mechs in there, but whatever. Basically get the gist of it. We have a bunch of weapons in this one, and the instrument deck helps you get them, like things like Umpire's Grasp, which are basically your only weapons actually. We also have CCG, which feels honestly kind of a weird card, but it is in it. Going Dang Swinging, so you can control the board. Metamorphosis, you can damage big time. Posic for extra tempo. Window Shopper is also decent in here. And we also have Macterodon. Sigil of Time helps you draw a bunch, and the Wand Maker also gives you more of your good 1-drop spells. Matchup wise, not that much stats, but like I said, it's not great against hand buff Pallies. And for the mulligan, let's see if we have decent stats already. Yeah, it's kind of acceptable. You get to see things like Oscillator, Posic, Illidari is fine. Spirit of the Team is also not bad. Instrument deck, Miracle Salesman's okay. And I guess the weapon is also okay if you don't have the instrument deck already. As for On the Coin, it's not much different, but even things like Parch Desperado are great, and honestly when going first it's also probably fine. As for other Demon Hunter decks, on this one the Ziliaxes deal free damage at the end of your turn, and also double the stats of the minion, which is quite a good tempo on it. There's also an iteration that's running the Doggos, as well as the Titan. This one's also quite popular, but the win rate is a lot lower than what I showed you, which was, I think, this one. And yeah, right now you have a few different iterations of Demon Hunter that can actually take you high legend. On the number 4 spot, we have Control Warrior, and this one is honestly not even that new. Like, it's literally same old Odin Warrior. We have a few different changes here, like things like Photographer Fizzle are gonna help you slap even the hardest armor gaining opponent. We also have a couple of new safety goggles, and honestly that's about it. Everything else is same old Odin Warrior, and yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of deal. Not much to talk about more there. As for the matchups, as you see, Hand Buff Paladin is not going to be great for you. 50-50 on the Spell Token Hunter, like we said. And same goes for Plague Decay. For other good warrior decks, we have tons of different iterations of Odin Warrior, basically. Like, it's literally perfect 28 cards kind of deal, and you get to be somewhat creative with the last 2 slots. There's also Highlander Warrior out there, which is doing acceptably well, nothing too crazy. And yeah, basically if you want to be climbing with Warrior, it's gonna be Odin your best bet. There is things like Mech Warrior out there, but they're nothing to write home about, as you can see. On the number 5 spot, we have Wheel Warlock, and surprisingly this deck is actually not a meme. Like, a lot of people consider this to be a meme, and I was one of those people. Kinda is a very annoying deck to play against, not gonna lie. Basically, you have tons of control tools, you get the ramp while you deramp the opponent, which is hella annoying. You have tons of big men, and with the help of Forge of Wills, you get to rush with those big men. A lot of lifesteal with Mortal Eradication, Drain Soul and whatnot. Gul'dan's Gift helps you with some hard removal, like, things like Twisting Nether and whatnot. Siphon Soul's also in there, so basically 5 mana Siphon Soul like that. And yeah, once you played a Wheel of Death, Phantotem becomes a 0 mana play, and that's hella fine. Sergeris is in here to help you, same with Reno, and if you actually hold on to Symphony for after the wheel, you get to shuffle a bunch of stuff in your deck, and you're not going to be taking fatigue damage like that, which is good. You're very hard on the control tools like things like Defile, Table Flip, Mortal Eradication, and yeah, with the Gul'dan's Gift it's also pretty flexible, but yeah, all around the deck is actually kind of pretty crazy. And the Ziliax modules are you actually want to be shuffling a copy of Ziliax back into your deck, I guess, so you don't take fatigue damage with after you played a wheel, and you have the perfect module so you can actually heal a bunch, so it's basically healing you for 4, has Taunt, Divine Shield, Rush, pretty good stuff. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show, and you literally don't have any bad ones, but hand buff Pally is gonna be under 50-50. For the mulligans, here's what it looks like going first. I don't know about keeping Loken like that. Maybe it has some sense. I don't know. Some more experienced wheel lock players could give their advice in the comments. Honestly, I haven't really played much with this deck, so I'm not that experienced with it, but I do believe Dark Alley Pact is going to be fine. Wheel if you're expecting to be against a control matchup. Table Flip if you're expecting aggro. Geode should always be fine. Forge of Wills as well is always fine. Doomkin if you're expecting a mid-range slow matchup kind of deal, I'd say. The Harp if you're against aggro. Defile if you're against aggro. Mortal Eradication if you're against aggro, that kind of deal. Basically, depending on the opponent, you're going to be holding different things, so be careful and make sure to get yourself an extra experience knowing what you're actually playing against so you can actually mulligan accordingly. It's going to be pretty important with this one. As for on the coin, the situation is basically the same, like depending on the opponent, you're going to be keeping different shit, so be smart about it. For other good Warlock decks, we also have Hand Warlock doing acceptably well at 62%, very small sample size though. Several different iterations of Wheel Warlock out there. There's also Control Warlock, which I'm pretty sure is, again, Wheel Warlock. Yeah, it is. Sludge Warlock is still doing pretty fine. I actually played this quite a lot and can't stop winning with it, honestly. It's still hella good if you know how to play it, so don't sleep on it if you already have it. And that's probably it for Warlock right now. Like, Sludge and Wheel should be your best bets, so choose accordingly. Technically, this is the top 5, but we obviously also have to show Rainbow Death Knight. This is the best performer for it right now. And yeah, I already gave you a video about this deck, so you can go ahead and check that one out. It's pretty well-rounded, pretty strong deck. Don't always try to kill your opponent with the Necrotic Explosion kind of deal. And yeah, it curves out insanely well. You have a lot of card draw, you have a lot of control with Sickly Grimwalker, and you can also lifesteal a bunch with the Rainbow Seamstress, but don't forget that the Reborn out of this does not have Rush nor lifesteal, so be careful with that. Matchup-wise, Plague Decay right now is not that great against Hand Buff Pally. I mean, it's a 50-50. What the hell is a Flood Pally? Apparently some tokeny action kind of deal. Highlander Priest, shockingly, is not going to be great for you. Spell Token Hunter is actually going to be the bane of you, so I guess that's why we're not seeing as much Rainbow anymore. And Control Highlander Warrior and Control Warrior are not going to be that great either. And this is actually the best performing Plague Decay right now as well. Decided it's worth mentioning because a lot of people want to be playing Plague Decays. I haven't really seen that many Highlander decks out there, but if you want to be making some Highlander decks a bit bad, this might be the deck for you. And it's still basically same old Plague Decay with all the mining package, and you have Scarab Keychain in here so you can luck out with something like Valdir or down with the shit, and Cobalt Miner or Mining Casualties. Like, obviously, if you're playing this, you'll want to be sniping off the things you already run in your deck, unless you actually have a very good reason not to. Hellia is still insane. Primus as well. The Chain Guardians drop hella early, and Reska can steal some nasty stuff. For other good Death Knight decks, there's also Hand Buff Rainbow DK, which is also doing acceptably well, sitting at 58 with above 1,000 games. I've given you a video about that one too, so you might want to check it out. And that's probably it about Death Knights right about now. Like, look at this nonsense at the bottom. People are still trying some different iterations, but they don't work. For the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Druid, Highlander Druid is probably your best bet. Dragon Druid is still playable apparently, but nowhere near as amazing as the decks I already showed you. Boomkin Druid seems to be a flop so far, even though it might be a skill issue. I'm not still sure about that one, because I still see it in higher legends, and if they're playing it there must be some reason to it, and maybe just people generally misplay a lot with this deck, and I can't blame him. It's actually quite easy to misplay with that one. For Mage, right now, wow. Rainbow Mage was in the last top 5, now now it's actually kinda ass. So yeah, Sith Mage is still your best bet, but definitely not amazing. Same with Elemental Mage. It's actually quite the cheap deck, but quite the low win rate, so I don't know about that. And yeah, Spell Mage, thank God, is nothing to write home about as well, because God, every time they release a Yacht card, I fucking cringe so hard, because cards like these do not have room in competitive games, man, like seriously. As for Priest, Dragon Priest seems to be the best right now, and that's about it for Priest basically. Highlander Priest under 50, Automation Priest barely above 40, like very, very poor stuff. With Rogues, oh wow, Miracle Rogue is actually quite high, but very small sample size again, so some pro must have had some fun with it. There's also Miracle Boat Rogue, I'd say, and they're trying to abuse Sonya as much as they can. I have a feeling she's gonna be getting nerfed really soon, because she does make for some quite uninteractive games if you manage to pull it off. And yeah, Pirate Rogue is definitely not amazing so far. And lastly we have Shaman, and here Highlander Shaman seems to be the best for the masses at least, but there's also Nature Shaman out there, which is actually quite scary and maybe even in for a nerf, because it can literally OTK you as soon as turn 5 if the cards land correctly for him, and that is no joke, pretty brutal to experience. I did face it a couple of times today, and on one of the games it was actually literally insane how fast they managed to kill us. There's also this thing called Tendril Shaman, and you basically try to Shudder Walk and repeat your nonsense chaotic tendrils as much as you can. And yeah, on turn 10 the only 2 spells you have are Table Flip or the 10 damage Mage spell, so you can actually OTK people quite easily if you manage to last that long. It's quite the messy deck, it's kind of a Tavern Brawl kind of deal honestly, but if you're into that random nonsense, you might want to give it a go. And Elemental Shaman, still not that amazing. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the ever-evolving meta. If you enjoyed the video and found what I'm doing helpful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget you can find me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.